The Marketing Mixtape, a space where we cut through the noise and focus on what matters in marketing.
It's been a while, our faithful listeners of our Marketing Mixtape podcast. It's Bruce, and I am joined by Jason, as usual. Hey, Jason.
Thanks, Bruce. We're resurrecting the the podcast.
Emerging from the ashes, it's back with us.
It's a phoenix.
Is a podcast in the room with us?
It is.
We happen to else it is. So, yeah, it's been a while since we've chatted about all things paid media on the podcast. So, quite a lot of stuff we wanted to cover. And today we're going to be talking about a little bit about scalability. So, maybe you've dabbled in paid media, you've tested, you've tried. Maybe you've been running a paid media campaign for a while, but it's like, how do I break through and take it to the next level? So that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. Running your first few campaigns and seeing the first few results come in is always great, but then it's how do you break out of that plateau, which inevitably happens. What's going to take us to the next level is not the same as what got us to where we're currently at. So to kind of get started, Jason, key differences between paid media for B2C and B2B. What are some of the kind of the key caveats that we need to consider when considering the audiences for our campaigns?
Yeah, certainly, Bruce. So basically, I think you set the tone really, really well because, it really depends on where you're at and what experience you've had, what data you have. And this show is really designed and put together for people that have maybe tested, maybe been frustrated with results, or maybe had some success but can't replicate it or scale beyond that. And this is some of the common patterns we see in both B2B and B2C accounts. And over the last couple of years, we've managed both B2C and B2B accounts. There's always some very, you might say, common patterns. And when it comes to YouTube ads and search ads and display, there is obviously a big difference between B2C and B2B. Campaigns can play a role at different stages in the funnel, depending on, if you are a B2B or B2C. But just to start out with, if you are a service, a typical SaaS, and, you're running ads, you might be running ads to schedule booking calls or scheduling conversations with your prospects or running ads to get demos, maybe to a webinar. And when you're B2C, you're probably more conversion to revenue focused, seeing how you can get more revenue on the front end or put somebody into a funnel and then, upsell them to a high ticket offer. And obviously then there's the traditional, e-com, which, I shouldn't say this, but I do feel kind of the paid media e-com boom is kind of fading out. But you still have, obviously, Google Shopping is massive. I think a lot of the major Shopify brands are still, relying very heavily on paid media. But video plays such an important role in really three areas. One is bring brands to life, humanizing the brands through video, and creating that tangible emotional connection. And most importantly, the options that you can get in regards to targeting and messaging, because it's a video, it's so flexible what you can say and the emotions you can invoke. And regarding targeting methods, things have been really messed up the last couple of months because, Google 6 months ago removed, contextual targeting, which really killed many advertisers. Many advertisers have depended 100% on the contextual targeting. We had a couple of accounts that were highly dependent on contextual targeting, which just for anyone who's listening, contextual targeting was when you could run a video ad to a keyword and basically anyone making that search in a search engine would then see that ad somewhere in the, period of a couple of days or, a couple of hours after they made that search. And it was a really good way of, aligning buyer intent with, showing them your ad. But targeting methods still remain very flexible in regards to Google has a lot of options, just like Facebook ads do as well. But, audience segments, keywords, intent signals, retargeting. But Google's really taken a step back as to how much information you can get on keyword research on their other search properties. So, yeah, but
it's because that's kind of raising interesting questions. Like, how do you balance, a targeted message with that need for privacy? Because no one hates watching a game of professional table air hockey on YouTube and being interrupted by an ad for toilet paper than me. And so when ads are relevant, I don't know if appreciating them is the right word, but if in the context, they have their place, and they bring their value. But when there's just like no targeting, is what creates the user frustration, I think, with ads, especially on YouTube. So, we're obviously big about targeting and right message, right person, right time, but it's how do you balance that targeting with the need for privacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few methods. One caveat to that, which I think is important that we highlight, is that when we say YouTube ads, we are showing ads on YouTube, but also on hundreds of other Google properties. So when somebody talks about YouTube ads, don't just think of YouTube as an app. Think of, it could be a news website with a YouTube embed player, for example. It could be multiple other Google properties. So that's one thing to bear in mind. Now, I think when you want to cap impression and view rate, it's a very good way to kind of test you might say up to what level are you kind of disturbing your prospect versus actually being, encouraging them to take action to kind of engage with your product or service or offer. I'm a big advocate of not playing too much with those functionalities until you've actually got a decent amount of data. But one of the things that we generally do is 7 impressions in a 7-day window, and then beyond that to reduce it by 50% until it becomes 0. And that's what we generally do. So the period of a month, if somebody has seen your ad 3 times, so 3 sets of 7, we would then remove you from the audience, and then it would bicycle to the next, you might say the next user, the next profile, because the whole idea is that you don't want to be showing your ads over and over again if you're wanting them to take a conversion action. If you're just trying to raise brand awareness, that's a different conversation. But if you're trying to get them to download something, to engage, to sign up to a webinar, to demo your software, to download an ebook, you really don't want to just keep being so persuasive that it becomes a nuisance. And there is a kind of a fine line there. So looking at your view rate and your volume of impressions, so capping the amount of time somebody can see an ad is pretty important. And then creating those automated exclusions, which today is super easy in Google. It's a click of a button. Once somebody's seen an ad so many times, you could just remove them from the audience.
And that's one of the key differences, right, between B2C and B2B. With B2C, you've got a measurable, revenue-driven conversion point that you're optimizing for, which is the sale. For B2B, we need to identify what those conversion points are as well, correct? They need to be measurable, they need to be trackable, but they're not the final step in the buyer journey. So I think it's key that buyer journey analysis that needs to be done before we run a paid media campaign for B2B is like, okay, is it a demo? And that's going to work for some products. A SaaS startup might work for, but then what about project-based businesses or people aren't selling software? Like, what are those key steps that we know need to happen, and how can we optimize for those key touch points? Again, like brand awareness, I think is a big part of that. Paid media playing part of a multi-channel strategy for staying in front of a customer and being able to act when we see engagement signals. A certain amount of impressions, clicking on an ad, can that trigger an email? Can that trigger a phone call from a sales rep? I see too many people kind of departmentalizing paid media, and paid media kind of has its pipeline, and outbound, cold outreach has its own pipeline. But these channels need to be talking together and working together, correct?
Yeah, 100%. And I also think that the biggest question that you have to figure out early in to your paid media journey is, what role does paid media play, and how responsible is it on how accountable are you going to make it to the rest of the connected channels? It doesn't work in a silo. And I do believe that, as you said, connecting paid media with every other step in the funnel and in the buyer journey is absolutely essential for long-term success.
There's a study I read the other day. Covering the exact number, I think it's 26%. There's a study done on an email marketing campaign sent out to the full database, and then comparing that to when ads were shown alongside the emails, and the click-through rate within the emails was, I think it was close to 26% higher than when the brand relied on email alone. So that kind of highlights what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%. No, I mean, it has to go hand in hand. And I think that's, a good segue into you might say, next chapter of our conversation here today is really paid media. Paid media doesn't work on its own. It has to be part of, you might say, a sequence or a process or a journey. And, when you're looking at any channel, for example, social media or, SEO content or whatever channel you're looking at, you obviously can't look at it in a silo. You can for some, you might see some conversations, but at the end of the day, everything is connected. And although you should drive accountability into each channel, there are a lot of dependencies, and some channels depend on other parts of that journey. And it's very important that when you commit to a paid media strategy, that it is part of a sequence, it's part of a journey. There is a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end, but it doesn't actually end where the paid media ends. There is now something that's going on beyond that. There is an email sequence, there's a follow-up sequence, there is an outreach from a sales rep, or there is, a delivery of the product. If you purchase an info product or a course, what's the email sequence after? Do you re-engage, do you retain, do you nurture, or are you adding more value to that person who actually purchased that course from you or that masterclass or that info product? So I really do believe that paid media doesn't, I really believe that paid media doesn't work on its own. It is part of a full process, and it's very important that we analyze channels, the relationships and how they talk to each other, and how channels integrate versus how they work independently.
Yeah, we're going to get into attribution today. We talked about attribution on our last episode or the episode before.
Yeah. One thing I was just going to say, Bruce, even in the marketing community, right? It's like, everyone is very segmented. Like, you're an email marketer, you're a paid media specialist, you're an SEO, you're a CMO, you're a strategist. I mean, that's all good and fine, but I always give the example of like a mechanic. A mechanic on a vehicle, he should know where everything fits, and then you're going to bring in specialists if you need something, it's suspension or, maybe on a gearbox or something electronic. But the mechanic should know where everything fits and how it talks to each other. And you can't have the suspension working independently to the chassis. And the same happens in marketing. You can't have channels working independently without them talking to other areas or other channels in your marketing stack. And that's why I do feel that when you look at the customer journey, either B2B and B2C, understanding those different touch points in the journey is key to figuring out where paid media plays a role and what you can expect from it.
And this wasn't planned, but this sounds like a lead up to an ad for Yugo Media, because that's essentially what we try and do, is bringing all the specialists under one roof. And then you've got your digital strategist who kind of is the conductor of the orchestra, but then you've got the wind section, you've got the horn section, you've got the strings, who are all experts in their area, but then they're all playing for one goal, which is to entertain the audience. And that's kind of the buyer journey, the journey that you're taking them through during a concert. But that wasn't planned. So
that was a good ad, Bruce. Great ad. One thing I was going to say as to connecting the you might say the different channels is that's when really understanding the buyer journey is really, really important. And somebody, and a customer actually told me the other day, he said that they had the most success with their customers because they happen to be consultants, advisory consultants. They have the most success when they spend more time on the problem than on the solution. And I thought that was so interesting. For marketing, we spend so much time analyzing campaigns, right? Analyzing what we're going to do, how we're going to achieve this. And sometimes it's very necessary to take a step back and really focus on what the customer needs. This isn't a product development discussion, but really it is a product development discussion. That's why I think these programs like product-led growth are actually being pretty successful, because the more you know about the customer, the more you can tailor the experience around them, the better you understand what channels will contribute best at what given time in the funnel. And that's why paid media is an extremely important step, because it's very dynamic and you can insert it. You might say it's a very dynamic and player in the funnel. You can insert it around the journey to create that experience, so you can improve your conversion rates, improve your ROAS, and create, set yourself up for more sustainable customer acquisition.
And going back, to the point we just said, like everything has to play together. If you get your customer service team involved in marketing sales discussions, understand the problems that they're facing, the language that they're using, how they're using our product to solve a specific business, business challenge. We can use that language in ads back at our audience so they feel like we understand them, correct? And more often than not, that information is available within the team. It's just that when teams aren't talking together and we feel like, customer support it just solves tickets, marketing just has to generate leads, and sales are the ones that, bring the deal over the line. That's when you miss some really key insights as to, what that buyer journey looks like. And we miss opportunities there for optimizing, language using ad campaigns, landing page optimization, which is the next thing we're going to talk about, how that messaging translates from an ad then onto a landing page, and how that, how we deliver on the promise essentially that campaigns.
The better you can speak your customer's language, I think the more they're going to, understand you. I mean, obviously, when it comes to landing pages, it's probably, I'd say, the biggest area for opportunity and growth, I think, in paid media, outside of setting up campaigns, well-structured campaigns with good creative assets, solid bidding strategies, decent budget. When I mean decent budget, I don't mean $5,000 a day. I mean, you can set up a very effective campaign with $250 a day, $300 a day. But when you have kind of got that baseline set up, you've got a clear offer, you've got a good ad. In the case that you're a B2C, let's say you're driving ads to a landing page to squeeze the landing page, to create a contact and then enroll it into a sequence, for example. Now, landing pages are probably the most overlooked area in the funnel. And the reason being is that we often, this is kind of like the last step when you plan a campaign. It's like you do everything, you draft the campaign, you draft the ad, you create the ads, you do the ad structure campaigns with keywords, with audiences, etc. And then, you actually need a landing page, it needs to be designed, and it's kind of like a last minute. And sometimes if you reverse that and you design everything around the experience and around the narrative and around the language and around the messaging, I can guarantee you that the conversion rate will speak for itself. Now, a couple of things that you can do to optimize landing page for conversion specifically come from YouTube ads and video ads is the most significant improvement you can make is the person who is on camera in the video ad has to be the person on the landing page or has to be included. You can't run an ad with, for example, a model from an agency. For example, let's say you hire a model and that person, is a role is on screen for the ad. They go to the landing page, something completely different. It's like, sorry, who am I talking to? There has to be consistency with the brand. That's the first thing. So the person who represents the ambassador who is in the ad has to be consistent, has to be on the landing page. The second is you can't use language in a video or a narrative in a video ad that then they go to the landing page and they use a different narrative, different language. That's what you're saying, Bruce, is that if you can spend time getting feedback, via customer service, via sales, just like listening to sales calls, you can build a really good picture of what the messaging should be and make sure that the video ad and the landing page actually connects. So, for example, if you've got technical terms because you're a B2B and you're not using them, but that all of your prospect customers use those words, then they need to be in the video ad. They need to be in the landing page. If there's, nuanced industry-related, acronyms that are like key to triggering conversations, then they need to be in there. Again, obviously this is based on, an industry industry. Each industry is different, so we can't generalize. But I think that having consistency between the language and narrative in the ad and the landing page is very important. And then lastly, on the landing page, be bold and be more visual versus text. Now you do need, if you're sending, for example, a webinar, you need a nice, table of contents of what they're going to get. You have to be clear about what to expect, who's going to be there, who's going to speak, and you might say credentials and all of that. But I've seen way better results from bold statements versus heavy paragraphs of text, especially in an age where AI and generative AI is just part now of our daily lives. We just want things quickly and precisely, on point, and just make sure the message connects and it just says what we're going to do, and just keep things simple. So that's kind of some of my recommendations for landing page optimization for video ads, and specifically if you are a B2B, I'd say use industry agnostic language. And if you're B2C, invest in understanding what who your buyer is, what their normal day-to-day language is for your problem, the problem that you're solving, or that what you have to offer, and make sure the video ad and the landing page are highly connected.
Yeah, some great points you bring up there because, again, consistency between who's talking in the ad, where we do have, kind of an interview or podcast style ad, which is super popular, and then having the same person on the landing page. Like with UGC, and which has blown up over the last, kind of couple of years, then you even got, like AI generated creators as well popping up left, right, and center. So would there be an opportunity there maybe to have specific landing pages depending on which specific creator is speaking in an ad? So we have different ads leading to different landing pages, or is that overkill?
I personally would think it's an overkill, but again, that's just I often think if you have a good ad, a good video ad that's converting, really, what's the next step? Well, let's focus on the landing page. Let's focus on the offer. You could, if you had multiple people recording, multiple ads, then you could create multiple landing pages like tailored to that person. But again, we've even seen it in ABM strategies, haven't we, Bruce, that like if you're trying to target a really big account, you can even create industry sensitive landing pages with industry sensitive experts. So you've got like the SME, the expert on the topic talking to an industry and sending traffic to a specific industry agnostic page. Now that's very powerful because again, you're tailoring the experience, you're making them feel comfortable that you know who they are, and it's highly likely that they're going to engage with your content because your message is adapted to their industry, and what you're talking about. You're an expert in the space. If you're an SME, you're a technical SME, for example, in a B2B project, heavy industry in media, entertainment, financial, whatever. If people listen and realize that you're an expert in the video, they go to the landing page and you're industry agnostic. You're closing a lot of gaps and limiting the likelihood for them to exit.
Yeah, and again, coming back to this point of scalability, I think like once we start scaling campaigns and budget increases, these things start to become really important. The details become important because if not, we've got black holes putting ad spend into, not generating any return, and we can't lose sight of the purpose of a specific ad or a specific campaign. So breaking those out into campaign groups, ad groups, I think is really key as well. And then I don't want to put you on the spot here, but any like key statistics, any good indicators that would show that maybe our landing page isn't working as well as it should be?
Yeah, B2B is going to vary a lot on the targeting and like who you're targeting or what stage of the funnel. So I've seen conversion rates of like 2.5% all the way up to 10, maybe 12%. Again, it's obviously going to depend on where you in the funnel. You ask them to book a call, you ask them to download an ebook, you ask them to engage with a webinar. But let's just give an example that you're talking to a warm audience. You should be converting between 5 and 10% for B2B. If you're offering them something to kind of encourage them for the next step of the funnel without asking them to do something big like sit on a call, or purchase a 5K package. Now, B2C for cold traffic to an opt-in, we are seeing conversion rates in the range of 12 to around 18%. 12 being the lower, 18% being the higher. And I'm talking about engaged traffic because when we, back in the day of Google Analytics, we would just talk, all traffic because bounce rate was discriminated from your traffic. And now you don't have that in Google Analytics 4. So you've just got engaged traffic versus non-engaged. But I think 12% is a very good benchmark. 15% of some of our accounts conversion rate. And again, there are some really key strategies and very basic things that I see on customers' landing pages that aren't implemented, and it really affects the conversion rate. The first is you have to have an exit intent pop-up. It's such a stupid feature. It's so annoying for some people if you're trying to navigate, for example, Amazon, you get these pop-ups, or, you're trying to buy something in it. But the reality is exit intent pop-ups are so effective. The second is having sticky CTAs. So if you have a long landing page, for example, there is a video creator course that I subscribed to a couple of months ago to, improve my video production skills for my grilling channel. And I noticed their landing page was really long with all these testimonials. And when you got to the bottom, I had to scroll all the way up to find the call to action. That's like really bad practice. And so simple, especially if you're on or lead pages or ClickFunnels or WordPress, just to install a sticky banner that has the call to action pinned at the top. And the third, really most basic element is making sure your value proposition is so simple that a 10-year-old can understand it while they're on their mobile phone playing with Minecraft. So they're not playing on Minecraft anymore, they're playing Fortnite. I think simplification of value propositions is so underrated and extremely powerful. The simpler something can be, the quicker people can understand it, the quicker they're likely to engage, the better on-page conversion rate you're going to get. So just keep your value propositions very simple. So if you're going to help somebody improve, for example, their sourdough baking skills, baking bread, well, then just name it for what it is. Don't overuse complex jargon or,
Yeah, I see that a lot. People are scared of committing to a specific message, and so for not wanting to like you say, name something for what it is, we become ambiguous, and then no one knows what we're talking about. So you not only lose kind of your key audience, you're losing everyone. Anyway, can we talk a little bit more about scalability? What do we mean when we talk about scalability? We kind of hinted at ad budgets growing, and quantity of campaigns, quantity of ads. Are we talking about scalability being when we're getting decent results, and then we're like, hey, if we throw double the budget, will we get double the results?
So I saw a video this morning by a very influential personality saying that they don't pay for hotels, vacation flights, or any luxury experiences anymore because they've racked up so many points on their Amex credit card, I think it was, to the point that they could travel basically for life. And it's just because they put all their expense on their credit card. Why am I saying this? Well, Google is a little bit like pay to play. The more you spend, the more results you get with the right infrastructure, the better your team and the algorithm and your account should get better. Performance should increase.
Should being a key word there, correct?
Sorry?
Should is the key word there.
It should. Yeah, so we're talking about problems with scalability, but why I'm mentioning this as an analogy of credit card points is that the more you spend with Google, the performance proportionally should increase. And I'm not saying that if you increase by 100%, your performance is going to go up by 100%. No, but it should increase incrementally because you're acquiring more data. You're getting better conversion data. You should be getting better conversion data, and that should be reflected into your ROI. So some of the problems with this narrative, and that's why I'm saying this against myself, because this is what we do every day, is that, and we have we've encountered serious scalability issues with accounts. It's not an abnormal, it's not a taboo topic. I think it should be spoken about. But paid media it can't perform in a silo. That's kind of my first point around that, is that you can't expect paid media to perform entirely on its own. For example, if you have terrible customer service, paid media isn't going to fix that. If you have an outdated product, paid media can't fix that. If you don't have a sales team to actually close the deals, you can depend on paid media with some retargeting to drive conversions, and but at the end of the day, you're going to need somebody to talk to somebody to purchase the product.
Especially higher ticket items, or
the difference between a $500 product and a $2,000 product is day and night. And then the second aspect to this, which I feel very strongly about, and I actually write a lot about this on my own blog and on Yugo Media, is Google has created an expectation issue where people, the whole marketing that Google Ads has done and even SEO is that you can just run ads for a period of time and get a bundle of leads and then just kind of scurry off back into your cave and, make a bunch of money and then go back when you have some time. And it doesn't work like that. It honestly doesn't work. There's an expectation problem, excuse me. And that issue, unfortunately, often lands on our desk. That's why when I sit down with accounts for the first time, I ask them, who's been managing the account? What was their what was the cadence for looking at the account and observing data and making decisions and changes? What are you expecting to get from paid media? What are your measurables? What are the tangible metrics that you want to receive on a weekly, monthly basis that you're going to hold the campaigns accountable to? So there is an expectation issue. And the last problem with scalability is ad spend. If we imagine it as an incremental, you might say, month on month, we're just spending more. Technically, cost per lead should get cheaper because we start to outbid competitors and we basically expand our market share. It's like economies of scale. And technically that does happen. Now, one of the big issues we encounter is organizations set out with a certain ad spend, let's say of $10,000 a month. They commit $10,000 to their ad spend, to their, creating, for example, let's say it's a B2C who's creating MQLs, and with retargeting, we, upsell them to a product or to book a call and then, book a call funnel to sales. When they start scaling up, they realize that either the infrastructure around the ads isn't prepared for that volume, and it doesn't work on its own. So it's not the same getting $10,000 worth of leads and having infrastructure to deal with $10,000 of leads versus 50,000 or 100. And this is why I often recommend to do the analysis of, branded versus non-branded keywords to understand, well, how has paid media contributed to other aspects of the organization? For example, brand awareness, when, it might say the only focus was, okay, let's go and generate leads. So that often is where, scalability does become an issue because infrastructure around paid media has to go hand in hand. For example, you can't be bringing in 200 leads a week and one salesperson trying to deal with the 200 leads. It's going to be impossible. So, yeah.
So it's a little bit like that saying where, when people come into money, new wealth, it highlights a person's strengths or their weaknesses. Yeah. So the same with campaigns. If you've got a bad campaign, maybe you're getting some results because it's the low-hanging fruit. And so those people are going to convert anyway, where they found you via paid media, where they found you, via organic social. But, if you've got a bad campaign, you're throwing more money at it, your problem's going to get worse. If you have a good campaign, you put more money on it, and your results are going to scale proportionately.
100%.
Well, those foundations, those kind of, I guess the character of those campaigns need to be squeaky clean.
Yeah, squeaky clean. I love that. One other thing I was going to say, Bruce, is that we actually had a conversation this week about metrics and KPIs, and often, businesses, both B2B and B2C, kind of get bogged down in what they should be tracking. And that also can affect scalability because there is so much data. You have analysis paralysis. You actually don't make any decisions. You can spend hours every week, every month for years just loading data, and then you don't actually make any counteractive decision. Now, the idea of ads is strategic. So data from ads is strategic. So you can look at the data and, plug decisions based on what you're seeing, draw conclusions. Now, some of the metrics I would recommend you focus on, if you had to just focus on a handful of metrics, the most important one is click-through rate, because this identifies the narrative in the ad with the copy on the landing page. It's so important that happens because we have to bring people from ads to the landing page. So
are we talking about click-through rate of the ad or the landing page here?
From the ad to the landing page. There is going to be a percentage of, just rage clicks or just people clicking, ambiguously. But the reality is CTR is a very important metric. The second is on-page conversion rate, which is obviously the most important. And there's many ways of measuring this depending on where you are in the customer journey. As you said at the beginning, it depends if you're a B2B, ask them to book a call or to download an ebook or sign up to a webinar. But nevertheless, on-page conversion rate is extremely important. This dictates your target cost per acquisition, or your target cost per lead, or your target cost per engagement, which is TCPE. The last metric is ROAS. Ad spend, all over quantity of sales or revenue, and then what your ROAS is. Now, this becomes a highly debated subject because you now have to attribute your revenue to your ad spend. And this often is where most paid media managers get tangled in the weeds. They start to find perfect attribution pictures of, well, this lead came through paid media, went through the funnel and checked out and paid us. So this has to be 100% paid media. Well, but maybe there was a sales, maybe sales talked with that lead. Maybe customer service helped onboard them. So you can't attribute it all to paid media. And this works the other way around as well. Maybe somebody came in via organic social or search, and then they saw a retargeting ad, and then they converted via an outreach from a sales team. So attributing paid media is very complex, and that's why I always recommend to look at what percentage of the total marketing budget it is, the sales and marketing budget, and then attribute that percentage of all sales to all channels.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what I love about ABM, and when paid media is part of an ABM strategy, because at the end of the day, sales and marketing have one common goal, which is new pipeline, and new margin, new revenue. Yeah. So, like you say, let's figure out what part of the budget, the marketing budget, we assign to paid media. But everyone is pushing in the same direction. Never 100% attributable to one channel or the other. There's always going to be multiple touch points, especially in B2B.
Yeah, and don't expect your paid media to convert your leads into revenue without just any sales activities. Even in a spot low ticket. I talked with somebody the other day which has 7 or 8 very low ticket items, like $200, $200 downloads, $100 downloads, $500 mini courses, all of these products. And she explicitly said to me that without closers, she wouldn't have a business. And I thought that was because it also means that you have more conversations you're putting your ear closer to the market. Even if it's a low ticket, I know you're saying, well, it's a $300 product. I can't put a closer on a $300 product. Well, maybe you put them on the $300 products and try to sell them a bundle. But the key is you can't be passive when it comes to paid media. Like, paid media is active, right? It is driving eyeballs to your brand, to your product, to your offering. You have to follow through with that. And that's why I think that there is sales and paid media, sales and marketing are highly connected. We talk about this a lot here at Yugo Media, but they're really they're so integrated that they have to be looked at, and in a way where it's every single channel it influences it, the channel next to it. And the process of bringing in a lead and converting a lead into revenue involves so many different touch points of so many different areas in the sales and marketing. And that's why I don't think it should be passive. I really do think paid media is active, and organizations, when they're running paid media, should be active on the follow-up from leads. And it's a typical thing, like marketing, hey, we've got your leads. Sales is like, oh, the leads are bad quality. And the marketing goes, hey, you need to get close sales. And then the sales say, hey, but the leads are, bad quality. It just keeps going, round and round. But at the end of the day, I do believe that sales and marketing, and especially in B2C and your info products and subscriptions, it's very important to have that follow-up once the lead comes into the funnel and you're pursuing a close.
So before we start wrapping up, you talked about low ticket items.
Yeah.
Because up until, I'd say year and a half ago, the traditional, the typical process or flow was run a YouTube ad, send them to a landing page, have a VSL, have them opt in to a product, and then spam them with email until they buy the paid offering. Does that still work?
Well, yeah, I mean, at the high level, yes, it does still work. We have actually a few accounts that we manage that still have that, you might say, traditional model. This was highly influenced by Russell from ClickFunnels. Since I think he's had a different take on how he sees this, I think, developing into the future. The typical webinar funnel is also very, very much alive and kicking. Running ads to a webinar and then upselling the webinar to a product. But the reality is biggest opportunity I see today and going forward is the combination of paid opt-in and automation. And paid opt-in really is you run an ad to a landing page and you have a trip, you might say a trip product or a low ticket product that triggers them to go into a funnel, but they can't enter it if they haven't paid you something. So for example, you have a product that's worth $1,000 and the product is made up of 12 masterclasses of how to bake sourdough bread. And you're going to teach somebody to become a master sourdough bread baker. So you bring them into your funnel. I'm the user. I see an ad. He's like, hey, I'm going to give you a free masterclass and I'm going to give you $9 worth of value. You go to the landing page and he gives you a video. You see a nice video. You see a nice ad. A nice VSL. And there is a $9 product for you to access that's going to give you more value for, you might say, like a sneak peek of the final product. You opt into that product, and what you've done is you've put better data back into the CRM, better data back into the system, because you're not bringing in a bunch of free leads and retargeting those free leads without no intent of the actual purchase. And the second most important thing is you offset ad spend because you've now got $9 on the front end or however much. I see low ticket paid opt-in products to as high as like $90. You bring them in, and it also means you've now got them into the product. And hopefully, if you've done your product research right, and your product is kick-ass, and you're giving more value than what they've paid for, it's going to be a natural flow for them to go up the funnel and just turn into more revenue.
They're giving you card details, so there's one barrier less for them to purchase the full offering. Because, they're already in the system, they've already made that commitment. And there's also what's known as a confirmation bias, where if someone buys once, they're more likely to buy again to justify their first purchase, which is why sales exist.
And also 80%, what we've seen in our data, that 80% of traffic that engages with freebies doesn't actually, you might say, your access as a freebie doesn't engage with the content. Whereas when they pay for it, it actually means they've got an obligation to, access the resource.
They value it more.
They need the value, exactly. And so now that you've got them closer to your brand, now if you're just giving them something for free, I think that doesn't go hand in hand with increasing also your brand as an authority. So I see very much paid opt-in becoming flagship in, you might say, the paid, especially in the info product and subscription. Like, hey, do a demo, but instead of a demo being free, it's like a 30 days at 80% off, for example. So if your subscription costs $100 a month to your software, you're actually giving them 80% off, and they can access the software for 30 days instead of that free demo. And I honestly think that we have, as we go into the future, we'll see this more and more. And it's a great way to offset ad costs on the front of the funnel and ultimately leading to higher overall ROAS. But there is a few issues. And the first I do feel is your volume of leads is going to go crashing down, because obviously you'll have a lot less leads entering the funnel, because the conversion rate of people subscribing to something for free versus somebody giving you their credit card details is astronomically different, lower, and I'd say probably substantially lower than you think. And the second is you probably will struggle with conversion data, because you're going to be receiving less conversions. And that because obviously asking them to pay you something versus giving them something for free. So those two issues are going to definitely be initial growing pains, because you're not going to have that conversion data to plug back into your paid media to scale your audiences. But on the front end, you have the opportunity of offsetting ad spend and obviously only driving engaged leads into your funnel and into your CRM.
Awesome. Some great insights for sure. I'm glad we picked the marketing mixtape back up.
Yeah.
So we love to kind of wrap this up with a 3-2-1, which we do in our marketing mixtape newsletter as well, inspired by James Clear. If you haven't heard of him, go check him out. So 3-2-1. 3. Can you share, kind of capping off on this discussion and kind of summarizing 3 key strategies for driving better qualified leads with PPC?
Okay. Strategy number 1, split test demographics. I think demographics are a big most underutilized area in targeting to drive better quality traffic. Second is obviously split test creatives. Don't settle for one creative. You're splitting testing your demographics. You need to split test your ad sets and your ad creatives. And the third is look at day parting and look at where your conversions happen and what days of the week, and reinvest back into those days proportionately, because there are emotional triggers that help there are emotional triggers that your prospects or your leads most likely are triggered by to engage with your funnel, and often it happens in very particular times in the week, and there most likely will be a pattern. So that's kind of my 3 high-level, you might say, paid media tips for driving more qualified traffic for B2B and B2C.
Okay, and two tips that you share for improving video ads or conversion rates for video ads specifically.
Well, first of all, shorter is better than longer. Short, punchy videos do so much better than longer videos. And I mean specifically, shoot for 10 seconds, 12 seconds, compress value and just run it, go fast, because people even listen to voice notes on their phone at like twice the speed they're used to listening to fast audios. That's the first thing I'd say, go shorter versus longer. And the second is what we talked about here today in the Marketing Mixtape. Consistency of the brand ambassador is so important. You can't create a video ad, for example, and then don't appear on any social media or don't appear on the landing page. That person, that brand ambassador, is really the lifeline of that funnel, and you have to protect it all the way through, and you have to make sure that it's consistent and present.
Consistency across a budget. I love it. And one biggest learning for on-page optimization.
On-page optimization probably has to be chat functionality. We've talked about a lot of techniques today about exit intent pop-ups and sticky CTAs. I mean, they're all, you might say, quite obvious optimization learnings. But recently we installed a chatbot to a landing page, and the engagement was really, really good. And we weren't expecting it, just cold traffic. But the reality is we learned a lot about our traffic, and we were able to lean into those learnings to improve both our targeting and the structure of the landing page. So it's a pretty low cost investment, but even for cold traffic, set up your chatbot, create some workflows, automate it as much as you can to not increase your costs, but don't underestimate the power of getting feedback from cold audiences as well as warm.
That's great. You build credibility because you're giving people a way to reach out to you immediately. You get key learnings about who's arriving at that landing page. Like, what questions are they asking? What were they expecting when they clicked on the ad? Like, are they seeing what they're expecting? Again, going back to that consistency and setting expectations. Yeah. Well, that's it for another episode. It's been a great one. It's been great being on here again. So thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Bruce. We'll see you on the next episode.
We'll see everyone on the next episode.
Thank you.